Hi, I'm Anthony Newbold. Welcome to A Closer Look. As we reopen the country to tourism this week, my guest is the Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Dionisio. Minister, welcome to the show.
Ace, it's always wonderful to be on your show. Unfortunately, I'm in quarantine, so I can't be there with you, but we'll do the best we can.
Listen, it's just good to be able to talk to you again. We just opened the country, new regime that's replacing the one that we had earlier. How did we do? Was there anything that gave you or is giving you cause for concern?
Well, first of all, the system that is in place right now, or was in place as up to yesterday, was persons would book a vacation, come to the Bahamas, and then be immediately required to go into 14-day quarantine. As you can imagine, Ace, that was dead on arrival, and we saw minimal foreign visitors coming to our country. So tens of thousands of Bahamians continue to remain unemployed. Hotels continue to be shuttered. Airlift into the country continue to be diminished. And so we had to do something. The government is extremely challenged as it relates to its revenues. Its revenues are down significantly. The demands on the government are significant. And so we felt that the time had come for us to reintroduce tourism in as safe as possible a way commencing yesterday. The impediment was the 14-day quarantine. And so we consulted long and hard with the Ministry of Health, and we said, guide us on how we can reopen our tourism sector without having the need for 14-day quarantine. Now, Ace, I'm the first to admit, the safest thing to do, lock the whole country down and wait until we have a vaccine. But we can't survive that. So we have to do something to get people back to work, get our economy moving again. We're so tourism dependent. 50% of our GDP, 65% of our employment is generated by tourism. We cannot remain in this state of paralysis where nothing is happening. And so in consultation with health, we came up with these protocols to how can we safely reopen our tourism sector.
And so that regime now is, what exactly happens for somebody coming into the Bahamas as of yesterday?
So you have a PCR test, an RT-PCR test, as you always did, up to 5 days prior to your arrival in the Bahamas. You enter the country, you are screened on a daily basis on giving us an indication of your daily status. Are you losing your appetite? Did you come into contact with persons? Because the health professionals will always tell you, testing is important, but so is screening. So make sure you have a screening tool there. And then if you're still in the country after day 5, we perform another test, the rapid antigen test, to give us an update on what is your status. Now, there's a lot of talk out there about a test on arrival and why we did away with it. The science didn't support that test. After further review, the Ministry of Health, while they supported that regime to begin with, as time evolved, they came to the conclusion that it just really was not useful, and it would give you a lot of information that was incorrect. And so they recommended strongly that we scrap it. So we did.
Who's monitoring this? And you have somebody who's monitoring what's going on a 24-hour basis?
Absolutely. You cannot roll out something like this without an IT platform. So when a person applies for their Bahamas Health visa, they upload a copy of their PCR test. That's the test you get 5 days before you come to the country, up to 5 days. We look for 4 things. You upload that to the platform. The Ministry of Tourism has a room full of screeners that looks at that test. We look at that test to see for 4 things. It's the right test with the right result within the right time period done at the right lab. And if it fulfills all of those criteria, then your status moves from we're reviewing your file to your file is approved. And then you pay, and then you come here. And then we're obviously going to roll out an IT platform that allows us to screen you every day. I mean, you can't fill out no piece of paper and send us. I mean, it's completely unreasonable. So we are rolling out a IT platform to email you every day to say, here, go onto your health visa platform and answer the 10 questions or 5 questions that we have every day. Please do that. And then if you're in the country after day 5, go and have your 5-day test in order that we can get a status update on where exactly you are having come back into the country.
Does the location of the deputy CMO in the U.S., does that help you in any way, or it doesn't matter?
Completely irrelevant where he is, because the world has changed so significantly since COVID descended upon us. Most of us now, and it's highly recommended that everybody works from home or remotely as much as they can. So, home can be anywhere in the world, and he's extremely accessible. I can always reach him, and where he is irrelevant.
Okay. Listen, I know you're not we're just talking about the deputy CMO, you're not a medical expert, but you believe that we are in a good position now to welcome these visitors because, our major source markets, the cases keep going up. That's in the U.S.
So, Ace, you have to operate as if everybody you're coming into contact with has COVID. So whether it's 10,000 cases, 50,000 cases, 100,000 cases, it still demands the same protocol. So you have to ensure that you socially distance, and if you're on the front line, that you're being as careful as you can. I mean, obviously you have your plastic barrier or your barrier in front of you, you're wearing your mask, you've got your gloves on, some people wear a shield. You just have to assume that every single person that you come into contact has COVID, and you have to conduct your life accordingly. So yes, it's concerning. The world is obviously going into a second outbreak, but we are, that the health professionals are confident that the protocols that we have put in place will diminish, not eliminate, diminish the possibility of the importation of the coronavirus. Mitigate, I think, is the right word.
Way back in July, we know that you were saying, you and all your people at tourism was saying that there was lots of interest in coming to Bahamas. Is that interest still there, despite what has happened with this pandemic?
We are definitely witnessing that there is an enormous amount of persons, certainly in our core market, the United States, that are very interested in traveling. In those destinations which we are competing with, where they have absolutely no restrictions at all. So, for example, Mexico, and to a lesser degree, Jamaica, where you just have to get your PCR test and that's it. They are experiencing robust demand. So that tells me that many of our core markets are experiencing COVID fatigue, and they want to get away. They want to come and relax, go to our beaches, enjoy our beautiful country in a safe and as safe a manner as possible. I mean, obviously, we also want to make sure that when they come here, that they don't infect us. And so that's why we have the robust protocols. But we also have to think about us infecting them. So we are pushing the large employers or the employers in the tourism sector to make sure that as it relates to their employees, they have a robust screening process in place, because we want to make sure that everybody remains safe. And I know a number of the large companies are contemplating testing, if not weekly, bi-weekly, to ensure that the environment in which the staff is working is indeed safe.
Yeah, I understand you have a new marketing campaign. We got to take a break. When we come back, I want you to talk to me some more about that. You're watching A Closer Look. I'm Anthony Newbold, speaking with the Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Dionisio D'Aguilar. Welcome back to A Closer Look. I'm Anthony Newbold, speaking with Ministers of Tourism, the Honorable Dionisio D'Aguilar. Minister, I understand you have a new marketing campaign that you're rolling out. Tell me about that campaign, if you will.
So what we have done up until now is we've kind of pulled back on all of our marketing. and we wanted to ensure that we could safely commence the reopening of our tourism sector. And then we're going to relaunch our familiar marketing campaign that usually accompanies a major event. And this we consider a major event. So we are going to focus online, a lot of our advertising online, given the fact that Expedia is the largest source of foreign visitors to our country. And we're going to roll out in our traditional markets of television and print and billboards and all the usual medium that we use, that type of advertising. But we just want to make sure that before you start down that path, that you are comfortable with, and there's some stability in the market, and we're not lurching from opening and closing as we've had to do in the past. So we need to bring some stability to the market in order for us to launch our new marketing campaign. So we're holding off right now, and then we'll begin to launch that as soon as we see that stability persist.
And that campaign, that marketing campaign, will be confined, if you will, to the U.S., I take it?
Yes, primarily because of airlift. So we're only getting airlift from the United States and Canada. Europe, our major connection with Europe was British Airways, and they combined a flight from London to Nassau to Grand Cayman. Grand Cayman is not accepting any tourists, and they have, since March, they have banned any visitors who are coming there for a vacation from coming there. So there is not in the minds of British Airways sufficient demand to just service Nassau. And so, yes, most of our, if not all of our customers right now are coming out of North America and Canada. But, we have one major advantage, which is that we're so close to the United States. That makes us a very attractive destination to come to, because a lot of people don't want to go terribly far. That's why Mexico is proving very popular as well. It's just a short hop for most Americans to get there. And if something were to go wrong, it's easy to get back home.
We're talking about reopening the economy. Essentially, we're talking about land-based tourism now. What is the latest that you know, on cruise tourism?
So at the end of last week, there was a major development. The CDC, the Center for Disease Control, to which the cruise companies were required to interact with as it relates to reopening or restarting tourism, finally came up with a path to reopening. So before that, they were like, we're not even contemplating this. There is no path. You have to stay closed. So now they have come up with a path for cruise companies to reopen. And so all of the cruise companies are now, okay, now I see the path. Let me start fulfilling the requirements that have been placed on that path so that we can commence reopening. So quietly optimistic that cruises may begin sort of early part of next month. But as I've said in the press, it's going to be a crawl before you walk, before you run type strategy. So they'll start off with going to one of their private islands because they can control that experience. They can certainly control the health protocols on that island. And so they're going to start with that first. And then they will come to Nassau and go on prearranged excursions. And then the final step will be they'll begin to go back into the general public and be able to walk down Bay Street and shop in our stores and partake in what's available there. But it is going to be a process. And I have to say to Bahamians that cruising is an important component of our tourism product. And there are going to be scenarios where there are persons on a cruise ship that want to come off because they're not well and go back home. And we have been discussing, all of these cruise companies have been talking with us about the health protocols that would need to be in place for that to happen. Because as you can imagine, we're quite frightened by that experience, but time has evolved. They've developed the protocols that medically evacuate everybody out. It's not going to have any impact on our communities or our healthcare systems. But if we want to be in in the cruise business, these are the type of scenarios we're going to have to contemplate.
Talking about that, the Bahamas we have been the subject of a number of travel advisories. You have data on how concerned people are about coming here, that they're going to be in a safe environment?
There is no doubt that the level of community spread in our country has put us in a category that we don't want to be in, as it relates to travel advisories out of the United States. And so that's why we impress upon every Bahamian how important it is for every single one of us to do what we need to do to mitigate the level of community spread in our country. Because if we don't, the Americans are going to put us on a list as extremely high risk. And that's going to impact tourism negatively. And as we all know, tourism is our economy. So this is how you, average citizen, can help our economy to bounce back. We have to ensure that the level of community spread on our islands, and especially in New Providence, goes down, because it does impact the decision of the traveler of whether they want to come here or not.
Okay, Atlantis just says they're going to reopen shortly. I want you to talk about that and some more, but we got to take this break, and we'll be back with the Minister of Tourism after this. Welcome back to A Closer Look. I'm Anthony Newbold, speaking with Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Dionisio Diaghilev. Minister, Atlantis says they're going to reopen before the end of the year. Bahama, on the other hand, is sitting tight. The Atlantis announcement, I'm sure, is the kind of thing you want to hear.
Absolutely, Ace. Tens of thousands of workers in the tourism sector are home, experiencing the indignity of, income removal. It's just very difficult for them to live right now. And so it has been certainly an important factor or an important tool of the government to get the tourism sector back up and running as safe as possible and to get people back to work. And so, yes, I'm delighted that Atlantis is going to open in December. And I think, and I hope that Bahama will do so too. It's exciting in the sense that, Bahamians can now start to go back to work and start to earn an income. But it's also important, and I emphasize again, that if you're going back to work, you really have to ensure that you don't get infected. So you have to live your life in such a way that you don't contract this virus. So it is exciting news. It's good to be finally talking about things other than the coronavirus and the hotels opening and people being able to go to the beach and come to the destination on vacation. We tend sometimes to focus on all the negative part of it, but it's good to finally see some light at the end of the tunnel and hopefully Bahamians returning back to work and our economy beginning to start up again, because tourism has been almost at a dead stop since late March.
Minister, the last time you were here, I asked you about how you thought this pandemic might impact the physical infrastructure of tourism. We have these really huge hotels. All estimates are it will take a while for tourism to rebound, and who knows what it's going to look like in the future. What do you think still about the impact on the infrastructure of our tourism?
So our research reveals that tourism will probably decrease by 70%. So let's put that in terms that we all understand. In 2019, we had 7.2 million foreign visitors come to our country. We're expecting that to decrease by 5 million, down to 2.2 million foreign visitors, certainly while this coronavirus is with us. So there is no doubt that this is going to have a significant impact on our economy, as I predicted back in March, and as it is having now, and for some time to come. the economic downturn of 2008, 2007, 2008 took many companies 7 to 8 years just to get back to that level. And that was not nearly as severe as what we are experiencing here. But I think what keeps me optimistic is the fact that certainly when people come out of this pandemic and having been locked up and locked down and curfews and restrictions and all those horrible words that have become such a familiar part of our vocabulary, I think there will be an enormous amount of, okay, let's get back to travel. So I think it will bounce back fairly quickly, probably not back to 2019 levels in the short term, but certainly probably 50, 60, 70% of what it used to be, whereas right now it's under 20%, 20 to 30% of what it used to be, which is just devastating.
We think of tourism, and I think for the most part people talk about tourism, and they're talking about New Providence. How are you factoring the Family Islands in all of this?
So in past, 75% of our foreign visitors came to New Providence, and 25% of our visitors went to the Family Islands. Our research revealed that the average stay of a traveler to the Family Islands was 10, 11, 12 days, whereas the average stay to a traveler to New Providence was 4 to 5 days. So even though the Family Islands represent a relatively small component of our tourism arrivals, they are a high-end component of it, because people generally go for longer. They stay in more boutique type environments. It's more economic impactful because a lot of persons use these Airbnb type products. So the Family Islands are critically important to our tourism product, and I think will probably be the most attractive component of it as we move through this coronavirus pandemic and as we emerge on the other side. We like to say in tourism that the Family Islands were designed for social distancing. There's just, big, wide open beaches, lots of wonderful spaces, boutique hotels. It's a more intimate experience. We think that's what the discerning traveler will be looking for as they move through this pandemic and come out the other end.
And I know for the most part, we're talking about this pandemic and transferring this virus, people being infected. Generally, we're talking about everybody's afraid that we will be infected by those people coming in. What are you doing? You spoke to this briefly earlier. What are you doing to ensure that we here, the employers in the hotels and the shops at some point where the tourists are eventually going to shop, what are you doing to make sure that we don't transfer the virus to them?
That's an excellent question. All of the focus has been on them transferring the virus to us, but we really need to focus on us transferring it to them. And so we are encouraging all of persons involved in the tourism sector, especially the hotels, to come up with a plan to robustly test their staff and to ensure that persons coming to work are not infected or infectious and are not shedding the virus while they are on the job. It makes sense, and I think the businesses will see that the costs of dealing with someone who contracts the virus, comes to work, exposes all of their fellow staff, the costs involved in shutting that facility down, putting everybody on 14-day quarantine as they are required to do following an exposure is a very costly environment. So what we're recommending hotels to do is to come up with a plan to test your staff, to develop a platform where you can record those tests, and then have a platform in place where you can screen your employees. The health professionals will always tell you, testing is one component, but screening is equally as important. So every day they wake up, they ask the 5 or 6 or 7 questions that are critical, which is, have you been exposed? How do you feel? Do you have a temperature? You lost your taste? So on and so forth, so that they can be screened before they come to work. And hopefully those that answer truthfully will not come to work, and will not infect their colleagues or the guests. So businesses have to address this matter head on. I don't think you can bury your head in the sand and hope that, just bringing back everybody to work, that they're not going to bring, in some instances, the virus with them.
Is this something that you may wish to discuss if it hasn't been discussed already? Because a guest coming in contracting that virus from somebody, I don't know, you're going to sign a waiver or something, because you got a plan for that possibility.
Well, the way in which we planned for it was we did not want that guest to burden our healthcare system and tie up valuable healthcare resources. So we are mandating that every foreign visitor that comes on vacation to the Bahamas is forced to buy health insurance through their health travel visa platform. So, in the event that you test positive, and you have symptoms or you don't have symptoms, but let's assume you don't have symptoms, you can quarantine here, and the health insurance will help cover the costs over and above what you originally planned on spending. So if you end up having to stay longer, well, it would cover the costs of that while you quarantined in place. The second thing is, if you do develop symptoms and you need to be medically evacuated out of the destination, well, it covers the cost of that as well. We do not want foreign visitors coming to our country and ending up in our healthcare system. As we all know, our healthcare system is extremely overburdened, and the last thing we need is droves of foreign visitors turning up at our healthcare facilities looking for treatment. So that is how we intend to mitigate that. If they test positive and they don't have symptoms, we will encourage them to return home, because you can go from being asymptomatic to symptomatic fairly quickly, and we think that you should be in the comfort of your home in familiar surroundings should you take a turn for the worst.
Thank you, Minister. We never have enough time. Going to invite you back, I'm sure. And thank you for watching A Closer Look. Remember, you can also see us on Facebook and on YouTube.